While recovering from surgery, I heard my wife and teenage daughter laughing in the hallway. He's so gullible. He'll never know we switched the signatures. I burst out of the room, demanding answers. My daughter froze. My wife snapped. You weren't supposed to wake up. That's when the police walked in. I woke up groggy. My throat dry as sandpaper, my body sluggish from the anesthesia. The fluorescent lights above my hospital bed were too bright, making my head pound. My mouth felt like it was stuffed with cotton, and when I tried to sit up, a sharp pain sliced through my abdomen. Damn hernia surgery. I blinked a few times, trying to clear the haze in my head. That's when I heard them. Laughter. Soft at first, then clearer, just outside my hospital room door. It was familiar laughter, the kind I had heard almost every day for the past 17 years. Nadia. My wife. Tessa. Our 15-year-old daughter. My heart warmed a little despite the pain. At least they were here. At least I wasn't waking up alone in a cold, sterile hospital room. I had family, people who cared about me. Then I heard what they were saying. He's so gullible, Tessa giggled. He'll never know we switched the signatures. I froze. There was another pause, and then Nadia's voice, calm, smooth, filled with amusement. That's the beauty of it, sweetheart. He never questions anything. My chest tightened. My breath caught in my throat. Switched the signatures? My brain struggled to piece it together through the fog of the painkillers. Switched what? Why were they laughing about it? What the HLL were they talking about? The hairs on my arms stood on end. I didn't even think. I just reacted. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, pushing past the dizziness, the soreness in my abdomen, the nagging beep of the monitor beside me. My vision swam for a second, but I forced myself to stand, gripping the four-pole for balance. I took a shaky breath, steadied myself, then yanked the door open. They both turned at the same time. Tessa's eyes widened, her face turning pale. Nadia barely flinched. What the HLL did you just say? My voice came out hoarse, but I didn't care. Tessa looked like a deer caught in headlights. She swallowed hard, glancing at her mother. Nadia, on the other hand, narrowed her eyes. Her lips pressed into a thin line. You weren't supposed to wake up yet, she muttered. My stomach dropped. What the HLL does that mean? My voice grew louder, angrier. What are you two talking about? What signatures? Tessa took a step back. She looked scared, guilty. Nadia sighed, shaking her head like I was some annoying inconvenience. Owen, you really should get back in bed. You're not well. I ignored the condescension, my pulse pounding in my ears. Tell me what you did. Before she could answer, heavy footsteps echoed down the hall. 2 police officers. They walked in like they already knew exactly what was going on. One of them, a tall guy with dark hair and a no-nonsense expression, nodded at Nadia. Mrs. Caldwell? She gave them a tight, polite smile. Officers. Thank you for coming so quickly. What the HLL? I turned to them, completely lost. What is this? Why are the police here? The officer pulled out a folded piece of paper. He didn't look at me like I was the victim. He looked at me like I was a suspect. Mr. Caldwell, he said, we need to discuss the transfer of your business assets. I stared at him. The what? He held out the document. My vision sharpened on the words at the top. Transfer of business ownership. Signed by Owen Caldwell. Except, I never signed anything. The blood drained from my face. My hands curled into fists at my sides. What is this? My voice was low, dangerous. According to this, the officer continued, you voluntarily signed over ownership of your auto shop, as well as your joint accounts, to your wife, Nadia Caldwell. A cold chill ran down my spine. I turned to Nadia, my breath coming in short, uneven gasps. You forged my signature. She smiled. It wasn't the kind of smile I had fallen in love with 17 years ago. It was sharp, smug. You were under anesthesia, Owen, she said casually. It was the perfect time. My stomach twisted violently. You stole my business? My voice cracked. You planned this? Nadia tilted her head. Of course I did. Tessa still hadn't spoken. She looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. I turned to her, my chest tightening. Tessa, I said, my voice raw, tell me this isn't real. Tell me you had nothing to do with this. Her lips parted, but no words came out. The silence said everything. A wave of nausea rolled through me. My own daughter had helped her. The officers were still standing there, watching the whole thing like it was just another case to them. They didn't know, they didn't understand, that my world was collapsing in real time. Nadia, I whispered, why would you do this? She shrugged. Because, Owen, she said, it was never yours to begin with. The floor felt like it was tilting. What? My voice was barely a breath. Her smile grew wider, crueler. You think that business was yours? She scoffed. You think this life was yours? I couldn't speak. I could only stare. You're so damn naive, she sighed. Then, after a pause, she dropped the BMB that shattered everything. Tessa isn't your daughter. The air left my lungs. The hospital, the police, the beeping machines, everything blurred into nothing. I couldn't feel my legs. My fingers. My heart. No, I rasped. You're lying. She tilted her head. Am I? I looked at Tessa. Desperation clawed at my throat. Tessa, I begged, my voice shaking. Tell me that's not true. She bit her lip. Tears welled in her eyes. She didn't answer. And that was all I needed to know. 17 years. 17 years of bedtime stories, of scraped knees and piggyback rides, of birthday parties and Christmas mornings gone. She had never been mine. And now neither was my business. My money. My life. The betrayal was suffocating. But I wasn't done yet. I turned back to the police officer, inhaling sharply through the pain. My signature is forged, I said firmly. Check the hospital security footage. I was unconscious when they signed those papers. For the first time, the officer hesitated. Nadia's smile faltered. I saw the fear in her eyes. And in that moment, through the pain, the rage, the devastation, I knew one thing for certain. The room was suffocatingly silent. The officer's expression shifted, his confidence faltering for the first time. He wasn't expecting me to fight back. I could feel the pain in my abdomen from where the stitches pulled, but it was nothing compared to the fire burning in my chest. Betrayal. Rage. I turned to Nadia, my voice slow and deliberate. You forged my signature. She didn't respond right away. Her jaw tightened for just a second. Barely noticeable, but I saw it. She hadn't expected me to think clearly so soon after surgery. She thought I'd be too weak to fight back. I turned back to the officer. If you check the security footage from today, you'll see I was unconscious during the time those documents were signed. A flicker of doubt crossed his face. Nadia took a step forward, her voice calm but firm. My husband has been under a lot of stress lately, she said smoothly. With his surgery, the medication. I'm sure he doesn't even remember signing the papers himself. I clenched my fists. Are you serious right now? She shrugged. Maybe you don't remember, Owen, but we went over this together weeks ago. You agreed. We talked about it, you signed it. Why are you acting like this is some kind of conspiracy? I let out a short, humorless laugh. Because I'd rather burn my own shop to the ground than hand it over to you. The female officer, who had been quiet up until now, finally spoke up. Mr. Caldwell, do you have any other evidence that your signature was forged? I just told you. The security footage. Unfortunately, we need a warrant to obtain that, she interrupted. And that takes time. I exhaled through my nose, trying to keep my temper in check. You're telling me my wife and daughter can just rob me blind, and I'm supposed to do what? Sit back and wait. The male officer shifted uncomfortably. He wasn't completely buying Nadia's act, but without immediate proof. His hands were tied. Tessa, who had been silent this whole time, took a small step back, avoiding eye contact. I turned to her, my voice raw. Why, Tess? She swallowed hard. Her lips parted like she wanted to say something, but then Nadia shot her a look. Just a flicker of warning, but I caught it. Tessa shut her mouth. Something inside me cracked. This wasn't just Nadia's scheme. Tessa knew what they were doing. She knew, and she had gone along with it anyway. But why? She had never needed money. She had always had everything. A stable home, a father who loved her unconditionally. So why betray me like this? Nadia turned back to the officers. I think my husband just needs some time to process everything. He's still recovering, and this is all just a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? My hands curled into fists at my sides. But I couldn't lose control, not yet. The officer hesitated for a long moment before finally sighing. Right now, there's no immediate legal action we can take. But, Mr. Caldwell, if you truly believe fraud was committed, you'll need to get a lawyer involved. A lawyer? Of course. Nadia was counting on me being too weak, too shocked, too drained to fight back. She thought I'd give up, accept the loss, and disappear quietly. She had no idea who she was dealing with. The officers gave me a stiff nod before heading toward the door. As soon as they were gone, the air in the room changed. The fake sweetness vanished from Nadia's face. She crossed her arms, tilting her head. You can drag this out if you want, she said, her voice low. It won't change anything. The papers are signed. The shop is mine now. A cold smirk curled on her lips. And so is everything else. I took a slow step toward her, the pain in my stomach nothing compared to the fire in my veins. You really think I'm just gonna roll over and take this? She didn't flinch. If anything, she looked amused. It's already done, Owen. Tessa was still standing behind her, her arms wrapped around herself. shifting on her feet. She looked at the floor, biting her lip. Do you even feel bad about this? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Her head snapped up. She did look guilty, but she didn't say a damn word. Nadia scoffed. Oh, don't go playing the victim now, Owen. You're not as innocent as you think. I blinked. What the HLL is that supposed to mean? She smiled like she knew something I didn't. And maybe she did. I narrowed my eyes. You planned this for months, didn't you? She didn't answer. But the smirk on her face told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. It wasn't a last-minute betrayal. This was a long game. I had been too blind to see it coming. And now I was paying the price. My mind raced. The paperwork had already been filed. The shop, the money. Everything was legally hers. But there had to be something she didn't account for. A mistake. A crack in her plan. And I would find it. I took a slow breath. This isn't over. She smiled, reaching into her purse and pulling out her car keys. Oh, Owen, she said, shaking her head. It's been over for a long time. You just never saw it. She turned to leave. Tessa hesitated for just a second, glancing at me again. There was something in her eyes. Guilt. Hesitation. Regret. But she still followed her mother out the door. I stood there, fists clenched, body trembling, not from pain, not from exhaustion, but from pure, blinding rage. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. And I was going to make damn sure they regretted every single second of this. The moment they left, I sank onto the edge of the hospital bed, my hands gripping my knees. My breaths were coming too fast, too uneven. I pressed my fingers to my temple, trying to steady myself. My shop. My accounts. My daughter. Gone. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to rip the 4 out of my arm and storm out of this hospital like a man on fire. But I couldn't afford to act on impulse. Not now. Not when they were already 10 steps ahead of me. I forced myself to think. What did I have left? Not much. My accounts were frozen, or worse, emptied. My name had probably already been scrubbed from my own business records. Even my house, the place I had lived for the past 17 years, was technically under Nadia's name, but I wasn't out of options. I still had my name. I still had my knowledge. I still had one thing Nadia didn't, the will to fight back. And I wasn't going to let this go. I reached for the hospital phone and dialed the only person I knew I could trust. The line rang twice before a gruff voice answered. What? I exhaled in relief. Leo. It's Owen. There was a beat of silence. Then, why do you sound like someone just ripped your guts out? I let out a dry laugh. Because someone did. Leo had been my best friend since high school. We'd gone through everything together. Bad breakups, worse decisions, and one near-death experience involving a faulty bungee cord in Mexico. He was also my business partner, at least on paper. Which meant, if Nadia had somehow wiped me out completely, he was my last hope. Listen, I said, lowering my voice. I need to know something. Right now. Leo sighed. Jesus, Owen. I was in the middle of... Did Nadia take my name off the business? I cut in. Legally. That shut him up. Another pause. Then more serious this time. What the HLL are you talking about? I swallowed the lump in my throat. She forged my signature while I was in surgery. The cops were here. They showed me the papers. Everything's in her name now. Silence. Then that conniving backstabbing. I know. My voice was tight. I need you to check the business records. Tell me what's left. Tell me if I still have anything. I heard rustling on the other end. Leo was already moving, probably grabbing his laptop, already logging into the system. That BTCH is gonna regret this, he muttered. Give me 10 minutes. The line went dead. I dropped the phone back onto the receiver and exhaled. I wasn't alone. But that didn't mean I wasn't drowning. My head was still spinning. My wife, no, my ex-wife, because there was no way in HLL I was staying married to her, hadn't just stolen from me. She'd planned this for months, maybe even years. And Tessa. God. I ran a hand down my face. She wasn't mine. The little girl I had tucked in at night. The teenager I had driven to school every morning, no matter how much she rolled her eyes at me. The child I had loved like my own, because I thought she was. She had known. She had helped. And I had never seen it coming. A sharp knock at the door snapped me back to reality. I looked up expecting a nurse. Instead, a man in a navy blue suit stepped inside, carrying a briefcase. His expression was unreadable, his posture stiff and professional. Mr. Caldwell? I frowned. Yeah. He stepped closer. My name is Anthony Westbrook. I'm a lawyer. Your wife hired me. Of course she did. I crossed my arms. Let me guess. You're here to make sure I don't cause a scene. Westbrook adjusted his tie. I'm here to offer you a proposition. I narrowed my eyes. What kind of proposition? He set the briefcase down, clicked it open, and pulled out a stack of neatly stapled documents. This is a formal agreement, he said smoothly, stating that in exchange for a financial settlement, you will waive any legal disputes over the business transfer, your joint assets, and your residence. I scoffed. She stole everything from me, and now she wants me to sign a paper saying I'm okay with it? Westbrook gave me a tight smile. She's willing to be generous. I leaned forward. And if I don't sign? His smile didn't waver. Then we take this to court. I let the words sink in. I knew what he was saying. I didn't have access to my accounts. I didn't have money for a high-powered attorney. Nadia did. She had spent months planning this. She had every advantage. But what she didn't realize, what her fancy lawyer didn't understand, was that I wasn't the same man I had been before that surgery. I wasn't the trusting husband. I wasn't the oblivious father. I was a man with nothing left to lose. I smiled at Westbrook, a slow, deliberate smile. Tell Nadia she can shove that contract up hers. His lips pressed into a thin line. He clicked the briefcase shut, gave me one last polite nod, and walked out. I exhaled, my hands trembling with barely contained fury. I had one shot at this. I didn't have money. I didn't have my business. I didn't even have my daughter. But I had one thing she hadn't counted on. I had a reason to burn it all down. My phone buzzed. I grabbed it and answered without thinking. Leo's voice was tense. We've got a problem. I sat up straighter. What now? Leo hesitated. Then, you're not gonna like this. My stomach twisted. Just say it. He sighed heavily. Nadia didn't just take the shop, Owen. She's been siphoning money out for months. Thousands. She moved it into private accounts before she even made the transfer official. I clenched my jaw. She had been bleeding me dry before I even knew I was cut. And Leo continued, his voice grave. It gets worse. I gripped the phone tighter. How? He hesitated. Then finally he spoke. She's been selling off the business, piece by piece. And the buyer? It's someone you know. I went completely still. Leo exhaled. It's Carter. I felt my entire body go numb. Carter. The name hit me like a freight train. My ex-best friend. The man I had once trusted more than anyone. Until he disappeared from my life years ago. Until he resurfaced, apparently, to stab me in the back all over again. I closed my eyes. This wasn't just about Nadia anymore. This wasn't just about the business. This was a goddamn war. The name sat like poison in my throat. I hadn't spoken to him in years. Not since he walked away from our friendship without so much as a goodbye. Back then, I had been too stubborn to ask why. Too proud to chase after him. Now, I finally had my answer. He hadn't left. He had been waiting. Waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Tell me you're joking, I muttered into the phone, gripping the hospital sheets so hard my knuckles turned white. Leo exhaled. I wish I was. I pressed my free hand against my forehead, my brain scrambling to put the pieces together. How much does he own? I asked. Leo hesitated. Technically, nothing. But if Nadia follows through with the sale, he'll own more than half the company. Half. That wasn't just a business deal. That was a takeover. I gritted my teeth. How long do I have? Not long. The paperwork is in motion. Could be finalized within a week, maybe less. A week. I had 7 days, probably less, before my entire life was signed away to the two people I hated most. Leo hesitated. Look, man, I know this is a lot, but find me a lawyer, I cut in. A pause. Oh, and you don't have the money for... I don't care, I snapped. Find me one who's hungry. Someone who hates to lose. Leo sighed. I'll see what I can do. Good. I clenched my jaw. Because I'm about to make Nadia and Carter regret every single second of this. I ended the call and took a shaky breath, forcing my mind to focus. Step 1. Find a lawyer. Step 2. Gather evidence. Step 3. Burn them to the ground. But before I could even think about step 2, I needed to get out of this damn hospital. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, wincing at the sharp pain in my abdomen. The stitches pulled, reminding me that I wasn't at full strength. Didn't matter. I didn't have time to sit here and recover. I was halfway through yanking the 4 out of my arm when the door swung open again. I expected a nurse. Instead, I got Tessa. She stood in the doorway, arms wrapped around herself, eyes darting toward the floor. I swallowed down the anger rising in my chest. What do you want? She flinched. I just. She exhaled shakily. I wanted to talk. I scoffed. Now you want to talk? After helping your mother rob me blind. Her face twisted with guilt. I didn't, it's not like that. I narrowed my eyes. Then explain it to me, Tess. Because from where I'm standing, It looks exactly like that. She swallowed hard. I didn't know it was going to be like this. I let out a bitter laugh. You expect me to believe that? She wiped at her eyes, her lip trembling. I thought Mom just needed to. She shook her head. I don't know. I thought it was just a temporary thing. Temporary? My voice rose. You helped forge my goddamn signature, Tessa. That's not temporary. That's a felony. Her face paled. I took a slow step toward her, lowering my voice. Tell me the truth, Tess. Why did you do it? She hesitated, shifting on her feet. Tessa, I pressed. You owe me that much. Her eyes darted to the door, like she was checking to see if Nadia was nearby. Something was off. I narrowed my eyes. Tessa, I said slowly. What are you telling me? She inhaled sharply, looking like she was about to spill something, and then, just as quickly, she shut down. Her entire body stiffened, her face going blank. I have to go. She turned on her heel and rushed out the door before I could stop her. I cursed under my breath. She was hiding something, and whatever it was, it scared her. I took a shaky breath, my mind racing. Was Nadia threatening her? Had she manipulated her into helping? I didn't know, but I was damn sure going to find out. I grabbed my phone and called Leo again. He picked up immediately. You better not be dead. I need you to do one more thing for me, I said, gripping the four-pole for balance. Jesus, oh, and what now? I took a slow breath. I need you to look into Carter. Leo paused. You think he's the mastermind? I don't know, I admitted. But something about this isn't adding up. Leo sighed. All right. I'll dig into him. But you need to be careful, man. Nadia's smart. If she knows you're looking into this, I don't care. My voice was sharp. She stole everything from me. I'm not just going to sit here and let her get away with it. Leo exhaled. All right. I'll call you when I find something. I hung up and pushed myself off the bed, my body protesting with every movement. I needed to get out of here. Because if I had learned one thing from all of this, it was that nothing was as it seemed. And I was about to find out just how deep this betrayal ran. I didn't wait for the nurses to clear me for discharge. The moment I could stand without collapsing, I changed into the clothes Leo had dropped off earlier, gritted my teeth through the pain, and walked out of that hospital like a man with a mission. The first thing I did? I met up with Leo. We sat in his truck outside an old diner, the neon open sign flickering weakly above us. He pulled out a manila folder from his glove compartment and tossed it onto my lap. You were right, he muttered. I opened the folder. Inside were bank records, legal filings, and, most importantly, proof. Proof that Nadia had been funneling money from the business into offshore accounts for months. Proof that Carter had been colluding with her long before I even went into surgery. And then, the real kicker. I flipped to the last page and froze. A prenup. My prenup. The one Nadia had signed when we got married. The one that clearly stated that if she ever committed fraud against me, she got nothing. Leo smirked. I figured you might have forgotten about that little detail. I stared at the paper, my hands trembling, not with fear, but with something else. Satisfaction. Because this was it. This was how I'd win. The next morning, I called Nadia's lawyer. Westbrook answered in his usual professional tone. Mr. Caldwell, have you reconsidered our offer? I kept my voice steady. I have. Let's set up a meeting. There was a brief pause, like he hadn't expected me to fold so easily. That's good to hear. We can meet this afternoon. Perfect. I hung up, a slow smirk forming on my lips, because I wasn't actually going to sign a damn thing. The meeting took place in a sleek law office, all glass walls and overpriced furniture. Nadia sat across from me, legs crossed, her expression smug. Tessa sat beside her, silent. Her fingers twisted together in her lap. Westbrook slid the contract toward me. This is the final agreement. If you sign, you'll receive a financial settlement, and the business transfer will be undisputed. I picked up the pen, paused. Then I leaned back in my chair, tapping the pen against the table. You know, I said casually, before I sign, there's something you should probably see. I reached into my bag and pulled out a copy of the prenup. Nadia's smirk flickered. Westbrook frowned. What is this? That, I said, sliding it toward him, is a legal contract that overrides everything in your little agreement here. Westbrook scanned the document. His eyes widened slightly. I turned to Nadia. Looks like you should have read the fine print, huh? Her face turned red. This doesn't change anything. I laughed. It changes everything. Because this states that if you commit fraud against me, you walk away with nothing. No money. No business. No house. Her mouth opened, then closed. Westbrook cleared his throat. Even if this is valid, Mr. Caldwell, fraud is difficult to prove. I cut him off by dropping a second folder onto the table. Inside? The bank records. Every fraudulent transaction. Every illegal wire transfer. Every piece of evidence showing how she stole from me. Westbrook paled. I turned back to Nadia. Oops, I said. Guess fraud won't be so hard to prove after all. Her hands clenched into fists. You can't do this. I tilted my head. Oh, but I can. And I will. The moment she realized she was screwed, her entire demeanor changed. Gone was the confident, conniving woman who thought she had me beat. Now she was scrambling. Okay, fine, she snapped. What do you want? I leaned back, pretending to think. Let's see. You're going to sign the business back over to me. You're going to return every penny you stole. And you're going to walk away with exactly what you deserve. I smiled. Nothing. Her nostrils flared. You bastard. I shrugged. You should have been more careful, sweetheart. She turned to Westbrook. Do something. Westbrook cleared his throat, looking extremely uncomfortable. Legally speaking, he's well within his rights. Nadia's face twisted with rage. I leaned forward. Or I added, we can take this to court. But let me remind you, I have all the evidence. So if you'd rather go that route, I'll see you in front of a judge. She stared at me, breathing hard. Then slowly, her shoulders sagged. She knew. She lost. By the end of the week, the business was back in my name. Nadia had signed over everything. She had no choice. She moved out of the house the next day. I didn't ask where she went, and I didn't care. As for Carter, once I leaked the fraud evidence to his potential investors, they dropped him like a bad habit. His deals fell through. His reputation took a hit. He lost everything he thought he was about to gain. Poetic justice. And Tessa? That was complicated. She showed up at my door one night, her eyes rimmed red. I didn't know, she whispered. I swear, Dad, I didn't know she was doing all of that. I sighed, rubbing a hand down my face. You still helped her, Tess. I know, she murmured, voice shaking. And I hate myself for it. I studied her for a long time. She was still my daughter. Maybe not biologically, but in every way that mattered. You're going to have to earn my trust back, I said quietly. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. I will. And for the first time in a long time, I actually believed her. The next morning, I stood outside my shop. The sign was still there. The building was still mine. I took a deep breath. I had lost a lot, but I had gained something too. A lesson. A second chance. A future that was finally my own. And as I unlocked the door and stepped inside, I smiled. Because I had one. And that was the best revenge of all.